Hi, I'm Joel. I'm from the band called The Discarded out of Orangeville, Ontario. I was originally a drummer, but in this band I play guitar. And as a guitarist, I'm a pretty good drummer. I also play drums in a band with a woman called Carmen Toth. And that's essentially about it. Out of Orangeville, that's where I sleep, but lived for a long time in Toronto, originally from Peterborough. So, my main influences growing up, I gotta say, I'm an older guy, so it was the Monkees, then into the Beatles. My older brother had records that I took a lot of them, and then I discovered stuff like the Ramones and the Jam and the Buzzcocks and the Sex Pistols. So I got kind of into that first thing of punk rock, and those were my major influences and personal influences. How I kind of got into all this and growing up. What got me into punk and hardcore? I love the sound of it. I remember I was really into, like in the '70s, I was into the Beatles and I was into rock and roll, and there was a lot of stuff like, people were into Kiss and stuff like that. And then there was this thing like the Sex Pistols came along and the Ramones. And I remember a guy had the Ramones album. I thought, man, this is cool sounding. And then it was kind of like we saw, I think we went to a drive-in and we saw the Who, the Kids Are All Right, and we saw Rock and Roll High School on a double bill. And although we'd already heard of that stuff in ACDC, early ACDC, and that, we went, wow, man, this is stuff we could play. And that's where we got full into being like this. We love the Ramones sort of band. And then after this band, that was this band I was in high school called Kids. We started this band called Creative Zero. And hardcore, we didn't know it was called hardcore. I was a fast drummer, and this is just sort of we did, and we were part of that scene, and we moved to Toronto, and then we were part of that hardcore scene. So I guess that's how I got into hardcore, opening for bands like Direct Action and Youth, and there'd be bands coming from out of town, Jill Heath, and we got put on those shows. So that's how I got into punk rock and hardcore. Kind of just grew up around me, became a music that I loved to play, and how my music sounded like. Giver. How you doing? First concerts, first punk shows. So punk hadn't really kind of blown up in Canada. So my first shows were like I went to the Who at Maple Leaf Gardens. I got to see Rush and Peterborough at Memorial Center, Max Webster, those sort of bands, Triumph, because those were the bands that toured you got to see. So by the time punk rock came along, a lot of the first punk rock shows, I was fortunate I'd moved up to Toronto. I got to play them. So I got to see bands like DOA open for them, and 7 Seconds, and, TSOL and Articles of Faith. They were touring through, and then someone like Jill, who was great, put us on these shows. So the first hardcore punk rock shows I got to do were those ones. I think I got to see Young Lions open for Millions of Dead Cops. I saw Black Flag when they played that show on Church Street. So those were kind of like the first hardcore punk rock shows I got to see. Oh yeah, there was also first punk rock show. So I got to see the Ramones. I went and saw the Cramps. That sort of stuff like that. Anything that kind of came to the Jam. I love the Jam, so I got to go see the Jam. I saw them twice. So those were like my early kind of punk rock shows and that. Okay, best shows I've ever saw. So I know I'm gonna forget a bunch. There's been a bunch of shows that have been of smaller bands that were absolutely awesome and blew me away. But I remember, I guess you kind of look back to when you were young and the one that you really went, whoa. So I remember that first Jam show I went to, going, oh, that was awesome. The first Ramon show, oh man, that was awesome. Rocket from the Crypt blew me away. I love that, right? And Super Suckers show. I love the Super Suckers. So really, there's a whole bunch of shows that were just, oh, that's the most awesome show I've seen in the last year. But really, it's usually when you're young, or usually when you're first getting into a band and you've had their albums and you go to the show and like, I can't believe I'm seeing them live for the first time. And they're just as awesome as the record that you already love and know every word to. Okay, so that's pretty well it for me. And then there's a bunch of bands where you just see them and you didn't know anything about them and you go, holy shit, they got it going on. They're on stage. There's this whole energy and vibe coming out that you just kind of go, whoa, that's amazing. All right. Craziest thing that ever happened at a show. I got two things that kind of jumped to mind. The first one is we were playing in London. I was with a band called the Snow Dogs, and I was the drummer. I was the drummer singer, and it was this place called the Electric Banana. It has and we're playing, and there's this weird guy who's really drunk, and he wanders up on stage, and he's standing beside me, I think he was asking for Freebird or something, in a punk rock show, right? This far away, as I'm playing and singing, and he's right there. And I'm just like, dude, I'm working here. I'm working, right? I'm playing, like, and I'm looking around going, is there anyone in this club who's kind of security or should be taking care of this, of people randomly wandering up on stage? And then it was just like, so after the song stops, he's still talking to me about playing, you guys, the drunk speak of how awesome you are, and can you play this obscure cover that you don't, because we're an original band, okay? We're playing these punk rock songs. We don't play Skinner, as you might have noticed, but you haven't. So then he keeps talking to me, so I go, you know something? He knows Skinner, and I point at my guitar player, and he goes, oh, really? And he turns away, and he goes over to talk to him, and my guitar player's going, you asshole, you know? Same night, cops come in the bar, they're chasing some guy around the bar, trying to arrest him, right, while we're playing, right? And I'm just going, this is a shit show of a place, right? So that's one of the craziest sort of gigs or things sort of happened. We had a lot of other, I remember on tour, we were out west, and we were playing at this bar, and we used to joke around, and again, it was Snow Dogs, and we'd play the latest hit and do 2 bars that we knew, like we do Enter Sandman, or we do some other song, right? And then people go, woo! We're playing at this metal bar, and they'd put on like a punk rock alternative band to open the genre up there, right? And they'd be like, woo! As we start playing it, and then we'd stop, we go, we don't play that shit. And then they'd boo us, right? And we did like 3 of those that were the popular song of the day. And then we look down at the metal band that's going on after us, and they're all on their set. So it's almost like we were mocking them. So that was another kind of like, oh, that's kind of funny. And of course, I forgot to pack my drum stool that night, so everyone was like, Joel forgot to pack his stool, was the joke for the rest of the tour. Here we go, running down to the bands I've been playing with. Started off in a band called Kids in high school, which was like a Ramones sort of sounding band, but we played original stuff. Then after that band went its separate ways, I started a band called Creative Zero, which was a hardcore band. Started in Peterborough. We moved up to Toronto, played part of that 82 hardcore scene. You can see us in a film, Not Dead Yet. Out of that, I went to a band called Big King Corpse, which morphed into Big Daddy Cum Buckets, which had the guy from the Doughboys, Scott McCulley, was in Rusty, and then Big Daddy Cum Buckets was kind of the lords of the bonehead rock. It was almost like a Meat Men. We opened for them, Tesco V, etc. Out of Big Daddy, I went into a band called the Snow Dogs. By that point, I was a drummer-singer. Again, we played from about, I'd say about 89 to about 94. Started kind of like an alt-country band called JP Wasson Band. And then when my children got old enough, started a band called The Discarded, which I'm currently in. My son plays drums. He started at 13. My other son plays bass. My son is actually 20 years old, to Caden. Shout out, October 2nd we're doing this, in case you're looking at this. So he's now 7 years later along that journey. Jared is 23. He's the bass player. I'm the guitar player in that band. I'm now the guitar player because, it's get the kid on the drums. He can be the sweaty, tired one. And I do actually still play drums a bit. I played, as I mentioned earlier, in Carmen Toth, where I did a recording and played drums for her band. And a band called Sharky, where I played drums for them. I think I kind of hit on them all there. What do I like and dislike? I love being a musician. It's in my blood. It's not something that I'm going to quit. There's some people, they want to be famous. That's never what it's been about. I love playing. I love making music. That's what I do. It's kind of an addiction. Ever since I got into playing in, the mid to later 70s, I've been recording and playing in a band my entire life. Okay? And then I'm turning 60 December 3rd, so I've been doing it the whole time. Punk rock bands, hardcore bands. Now I've got a punk rock band with my sons. We put out 6 albums in the last 7 years. So it's just what we do. We love writing songs. We love recording songs. That's what I love about being a musician, is that vibe of getting together and creating something together. That's amazing for me. Greater than the individual parts. And that's what was really cool with my sons. Instead of dealing with them as, I'm your dad, you're your son, we're together and it's kind of like your peers and you're experiencing something that it's just kind of magic for all of us. And it's like a really wonderful thing to have that window to be able to do it. And we understand it's a window that's probably going to close and go away at a certain time. but we had that time where we made this music and we're making this music together. So I could go on for a long period of time, but that's what I like being about a musician. I like getting up on a stage. I like playing to an audience. I like the feel of a guitar and the drums and smashing the drums and hearing the distorted guitar and just feeling the rush that you get from feeling the vibrancy of punk rock and music, right? What do I dislike? You dislike slugging the stuff up a stairway. You dislike, unloading the car at 2 in the morning or the van at 2 in the morning after you get back after a show. You dislike, I dislike pettiness. I dislike small-minded people. I dislike people who don't listen with their ears but listen to what they think is popular. Tell me what you like. There's a lot of people who try to jump on trends, who try to jump on, oh, that's popular, so I need to like it, hence popular music. I dislike bands that think everything else is shit besides them. I like a supportive scene. I like a vibe at a show where everyone's there to make the music, and your chord's not, here's my chord. Do you need my chord? You broke a string, here's my guitar. You need a drum set, here's the drum set, sort of thing, right? Like, I like that vibe. I don't like have the attitude while you play, but have zero attitude when you get off stage and be real people. And that's what's been cool, and what really I kind of got, look at a guy like Mike Watt, who would play in the Minutemen. He would play in Firehouse. After the show, he sits at the merch table and sits there and just chats with anyone who comes up to him. He's not a rock star who's in his dressing room. Like, that's what I like about the fact that we're humans who play music, but we're humans. We're nothing special, right? And that whole thing of, oh, I'm a rock star and I'm above you. That's what I don't like about music. What I do like about music is all that stuff that I described to you. Apparently I'm supposed to say Taco Bell, but that's not happening, okay? I just want to let you know. I was warned. It's very popular in Hamilton, but favorite foods. I actually don't like to go, I like this or I only eat this. I love, I love pasta, I love spaghetti, I love a pizza. We get sushi all the time when we do birthday sort of dinners. Love a good hamburger and fries. That's it. There you go. There's some of my favorite foods that I'm going to throw out there for you. My most useless talent. When watching any TV show, I'm able to predict where the plot's going to go, and half the time, what the next line of the dialogue is. Completely useless. My kids will look at me and go, how'd you know they're going to say that? And I go, cliches are cliches. I want to thank you for having me. You're a hell of a guy. And I'm really honored to be on this and doing this in the 10 questions. I got to do 10 questions from Stronger Than Ever videos. Steve.